a roboticist, and I get two types of reactions from people when I talk about AI and robotics. Some people get really nervous, ask about Skynet, and then ask me when the robots will take over their jobs. And there is the other group who gets very excited and who says, well, when will I be able to offload even more to machines? Now, I believe that everyone stands to benefit from AI. But we have to listen to the fears of that first group. We have to provide solutions, and we have to provide different perspectives for how to see things differently. And that starts with understanding that AI is just a tool. And like any other tool, it isn't inherently good or bad. It is what we choose to do with it. And I happen to believe that we can choose to do some incredible things. And let me start with an example. So this week, I published a paper about a new algorithm that has all sorts of interesting theoretical properties. And essentially, this algorithm matches supply and demand. And it can do so in real time for thousands of jobs. We implemented this algorithm on the publicly available taxi data set for New York City. And we showed that 3,000 capacity 4 cars that do ride sharing and trip pooling can meet the demand that is currently serviced by 14,000 taxis in New York City. They can meet 98% of this demand within a guaranteed trip delay of a maximum of 3.5 minutes. So the journalists mostly wanted to ask one question: does this mean that 10,000 jobs go away? And my perspective is that it really depends how we look at this problem. So we can provide a new perspective with a new business model, where we say that if taxi drivers agree to join the system, in other words, they stop being independent agents and they do what the system tells them to do, and customers agree to share rides, then we can get 10,000 cars off roads. We can provide drivers with shorter shifts for the same amount of income, and we achieve better traffic, lower pollution, improved quality of life for all. Plus, we create new jobs because getting these systems deployed, maintained, and operated will create new jobs. But in the future, taxis could become autonomous. And so this would change the job landscape. However, we have some time because level 4 autonomy is actually not ready for public roads. But level 4 autonomy is ready for lower complexity private roads like the one you see in this video, which was done in Singapore. So the technology for autonomous driving in these lower types of complexity environments could have immediate social benefits. For example, this technology on private ways could give Bob a much higher quality of life in his retirement. Say Bob wants to go to feed the fish with his friend Alice. To do so, Bob brings up his You Got Wheels interface, picks the type of vehicle that suits him. Today, it may be a golf cart vehicle. Tomorrow, it may be a shopping cart. And when the robot arrives, Bob gets a call. He heads out, and then he's off together with Alice to feed the fish. So although this robot car has no driver, we should not consider that it displaces work because the system does not exist at the moment. However, we can imagine all the different jobs that will be involved in the manufacturing, deploying, maintaining, and serving this kind of new approach to autonomous mobility. All this while giving Bob a much higher quality of life. So today, personal mobility could include systems like the golf cart I showed you. It could also include other types of vehicles, like these kinds of scooters, wheelchairs, and many, many other vehicles. And you can begin to imagine the applications that would be enabled by such fleets. Now, the same technology for autonomous driving can be mapped onto wearable devices to provide safe navigation to blind and visually impaired users, which at the moment does not exist. At the moment, in today's technological age, blind and visually impaired users still walk around with a walking stick. So what can we do? Well, we can map the perception system of a self-driving car onto a laser belt and some cameras, and with this, the system is able to identify the world and even describe it in words that get projected onto a braille buckle for the blind user. So for instance, this technology could describe a fabulous window display, or the presence of an obstacle behind, or say hello to your friend Alice who is passing by, or here's a cat. So in fact, this technology is really not that far off. And here's an example of using this technology with our blind user that is truly able to navigate the world, going up and down the stairs, moving safely, say, to the bus stop, and once the bus arrives, moving to an empty seat on the bus. And at the moment, this is simply not possible. And it's a huge challenge for blind people. Just close your eyes and imagine what it would take for you to find an empty seat in this room without the use of your perception system. So these are some of the amazing things that technology can do to improve quality of life, to improve efficiency, to provide better access by taking advantage of our state-of-the-art in autonomy for motion. And in addition to these great individual benefits, all of these systems are novel, so producing them will create new jobs. Now, in addition to autonomy in motion, we also see tremendous progress in how much information machines can process. And I call this autonomy at rest. And medicine is a great example. Machines today can look at more radiology scans than a radiologist would see in a lifetime. And in a recent study, an AI system was asked to look at lymph node cells and classify them as cancerous or not cancerous. The AI system made 7.5% error as compared to the human error of 3.5%. But when working together, the human and the machine achieved 0.5% error, much better than each one separately. So machines working together with people have tremendous ability to make an impact. Now, today these systems are primarily available in advanced cancer centers, but imagine deploying them everywhere. Imagine giving doctors in rural areas access to this kind of tool, and then augmenting with the latest and greatest in natural language understanding that will enable doctors to access the latest clinical trials relevant to the patient they're considering now, even without having studied those trials yet. Another case study is for lawyers. So machines and humans working together can be better lawyers. And today we already have seen a revolution in the job of a lawyer due to word processing, internet, and email that have completely changed how lawyers draft documents, access information, and share information. And the next wave of tools in natural language processing promise an equally profound impact on the job of a lawyer. With natural language understanding systems, machines could predict a decision. Machines could examine thousands of pages of prior cases and provide the most relevant information to lawyers. But machines cannot be lawyers, because machines will not be able to counsel a client, they will not be able to persuade the judge, and they will not be able to write a compelling argument, at least not yet. So machines cannot be lawyers, but they can change the nature of jobs lawyers do. And the same principles apply to many other professions. For example, teachers. Today, teachers spend 1/5 of their time grading. With the use of natural language processing, they can spend a little less time grading and a little bit more time with the students. Now, advances in autonomy in motion and autonomy at rest also will impact production. And we all assume that robots and AI will lead to fewer manufacturing jobs. But what if they lead to better jobs and even more jobs? What if robots and software could allow people very fine-grained control over what manufacturing lines look like. This is a really challenging problem today. Reconfiguring a manufacturing line takes a very long time, and for that reason, most manufacturing processes most assembly lines are configured for products that are in existence for years. But what if you could very quickly reconfigure manufacturing lines? Well, then we will really enable mass customization. So robots have already enabled mass production, and I believe that robots plus computation will enable mass customization. And this could meet the rising demand of customization and personalization in just about everything we buy. And in fact, today we do not have the ability to keep up with this demand at a price point that most people can afford. And because of that, we are forced to produce fixed products, mostly offshore, and these products get distributed in big shops. But by teaming AI, robots, and people together, we can reshape the world of manufacturing. We can imagine a world where experts design templated products that get instantiated by people at home and get produced locally in smaller factories that are closer to population centers. This could revolutionize production. It could revolutionize manufacturing. It could bring a lot of manufacturing jobs back. So when you look at all the positives of what AI can do, with deductive and data-driven reasoning, with personalization, customization, democratization, for predicting, improving, and adapting, you can begin to imagine a potential impact in so many different industries. But it's worth noting that there aren't, today's AI has significant limitations. And in fact, in Mark Zuckerberg's words, most of what AI systems do today are variants of the same fundamental pattern recognition techniques. And when we recognize an object, we are not able to go beyond that. We are not able to recognize actions and activities and behaviors. So there are significant challenges. And even with the major advances being made today, artificial intelligence is nowhere near close to people in perceiving, reasoning, communicating, and in creativity. Most of the machine learning tools we have today are one-off solutions that are only usable by experts. And I'm not saying computer science experts, it's machine learning experts. And then there are a lot of important facts about the state of technology. So crunching large data sets does not translate into knowledge. And making complex calculations does not produce autonomy. Also, achieving a really high percentage of correctness, 99.99% correct, which is what you need in self-driving, is exponentially harder than achieving, say, 90% correct. And perception and action is much harder than perception, which is harder than crunching data. Now, all of this suggests that today's AI limitations hold it back from outthinking humanity. And this table shows 4 categories of jobs, 4 rough categories of jobs according to skills and qualifications. AI systems are not ready for the jobs that fall in the first row, and robots will struggle with the jobs that fall in the last row, because a robot that can do welding will be hopeless in forestry or in construction. So AI can achieve some automation for the middle-level jobs, but even the most vulnerable jobs that fall in those middle categories, like accounting, even these types of jobs involve significant social interactions that are difficult to automate. So altogether, this suggests that we should look at tasks, not professions. And this chart shows you a graph that was done by McKinsey. Here you see a number of professions, and in color, you see the technological readiness for the different types of tasks people do in those professions. So people manage others, they apply expertise, they do unpredictable or predictable physical work, and they do data processing. The targets for automation are in green and in blue. And the size of the bubble shows how much time a person spends doing that type of task. So it's kind of exciting to think about AI making everyone's job better by taking away the repetitive and uninteresting aspects of the job. But it's much easier to think about which tasks might be automated than to imagine the new kinds of jobs that will be created. And so, for instance, in the 20th century, agricultural employment dropped from 40% to 2%. And perhaps a far-sighted specialist in the 19th century could have predicted this. But only 2 decades ago, we had the big dot-com boom. And nobody predicted all these different types of jobs that now provide so much employment. So I'm very excited and optimistic about AI, but I do have 2 causes for concern. They do not concern the number of jobs, but the first one is about the quality of jobs and wages. So sometimes AI opens the field to more people to join a job. So for instance, GPS made it so that taxi drivers did not have to memorize maps. That opened the field to more people who could become taxi drivers and put the wages down, push the wages down. And Eric already showed you a chart like this that predicts the drop in the mid-level jobs. So in my opinion, the only way to mitigate this polarization is education. And I would like to observe that we can imagine short-term and long-term solutions. In particular, for short-term solutions, I would like to highlight BitSource, which is a new startup in Kentucky. So BitSource trains coal miners to be data miners. And guess what? Coal miners are not upset about their old jobs. And they are very excited about the new jobs and the new opportunities. And so the question is, how can we take this model and incentivize other industries and other places to do similar programs? I think this will be a great solution for the short term. Now, in the long term, I think we really have to embrace the idea that computational thinking is the 4th pillar for literacy in the 21st century, and to introduce mandatory computer science training from early age, from kindergarten, from 1st grade. I can imagine that in 2025, the high school graduates will be equipped with the IT tools that will allow them to do this. And I would observe that China, South Korea, Japan, UK, 12 European countries all have embraced the idea of mandatory computer science training. I'm sure that the US will follow, and then we will have great benefits by 2025. Now, my second cause for concern is what I call anti-intellectualism in our country and the dumbing down of our country, the lack of trust and respect in science. And this is something that we should concern all of us. And we should really ask ourselves, what kind of world do we want to live in? Now, I believe that technology can be a huge vector for positive change. So how do we have to step it up to actually change the world and have people at large, have the public embrace science, technology, embrace all these ideas? Education is one way. But I think we also need to change how we communicate about AI. We need to inspire people to dream about how their lives can be better with AI rather than experiencing fear because of AI. And it's on us to do that. So in conclusion, I would say that in one important sense, machines and people are quite similar to each other in that they can help us or hurt us depending on the choices we make. We can't stop technology from improving and changing the world, but we can be proactive, and we could think about the consequences. We could think about what we need to do to ensure that those changes are for the better. I think Eric called this mindfulness with respect to change. So computers and machines do not need to be competitors, especially when they do so much better working together. But to get here, we really need to invest in developing the field of AI. We need to develop the science of autonomy and the science of intelligence. We need to think broadly about computer science and computational thinking as part of literacy. And we need to change how we message about AI to help people dream rather than get them scared. Thank you.